There's a common misconception that being nice and being kind are the same thing. They're not. They may look similar on the surface. Both can involve smiles, helping others, or polite words, but they come from very different places and lead to very different outcomes. Being nice often comes from a place of fear or a desire to be accepted. It's performative. It's about saying what people want to hear, not what they need to hear. It's about avoiding conflict, even when silence feels like betrayal. Nice people often wear a mask to stay liked. They go along to get along. They suppress their opinions. They keep the peace at the cost of their own peace. Why? Because they don't want to rock the boat. Because they don't want to seem difficult. Because they think approval is the same as love. Kindness, on the other hand, comes from strength. Kind people don't just do what's pleasant. They do what's right. They might tell you something that's hard to hear, but they say it with love. They set boundaries and stick to them. They don't sugarcoat truth just to make you feel comfortable. A kind person will tell you you're making a mistake, not to hurt you, but to help you grow. They're not driven by a need to be liked. They're driven by a sense of integrity. A nice person will nod and smile while silently resenting the situation. A kind person will speak up, even if it makes things uncomfortable. Niceness is rooted in avoidance. Kindness is rooted in honesty. Think about it in terms of leadership or friendship. A nice boss might overlook your mistakes so you don't feel bad, but that doesn't help you improve. A kind boss, though, will take you aside and coach you through it, even if it stings a little in the moment. Which one actually supports your growth? Which one values you more? The one who avoids tough conversations or the one who's willing to have them? Nice people can be easily manipulated. Why? Because they're trained to prioritize other people's emotions over their own values. They will say yes, even when it's a no in their gut. They'll go along with things they disagree with just to avoid conflict. That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment dressed up as politeness. Kind people don't fall into that trap. They know that their truth matters just as much as anyone else's. They're not cruel, but they're clear. They won't betray themselves just to be accepted. They know that being kind sometimes means saying no, walking away, or holding someone accountable, even if it makes them unpopular. You can't build a strong life on being nice. You can build it on being kind. Kindness requires self-respect. It requires discernment. It requires courage. It's not always soft. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it means disappointing people. But it never means abandoning yourself. People-pleasing is often mistaken for being considerate, cooperative, or easy to get along with. But what many don't realize is that people-pleasing isn't generosity. It's fear in disguise. It's the fear of rejection, the fear of being disliked, the fear of confrontation, and that fear, when it becomes a habit, chips away at one of the most critical foundations of a healthy life, self-respect. When someone becomes a chronic people-pleaser, they begin to say yes to things that go against their own values, priorities, and limits. They agree to take on extra work when they're already overwhelmed. They stay silent when they should speak up. They let disrespect slide, hoping it'll just go away. Every one of those choices may seem small in the moment, but over time, they send a loud message to your subconscious: what others want matters more than what I need. The real damage of people pleasing isn't just in the exhaustion or burnout that comes from stretching yourself too thin. The deeper wound is internal. Every time you ignore your voice to serve someone else's comfort, you lose a little more trust in yourself. You begin to believe that your feelings don't count, that your boundaries are flexible, and that your worth is tied to how useful or agreeable you are to others. That belief system rots self-respect from the inside out. People pleasers often pride themselves on being nice, but underneath that label is resentment. They start to resent the people who rely on them too much, yet they keep showing up. They get frustrated at being overlooked or taken for granted, yet they never speak up. That internal conflict, being angry at others but disappointed in yourself, creates a slow, corrosive emotional pain. It's a cycle that feels impossible to break because on the outside, everyone praises you for being dependable. But inside, you feel invisible. What people pleasers often fail to realize is that trying to keep everyone happy is not just impossible, it's dishonest. It's a form of manipulation that comes disguised as selflessness. When you say yes just to avoid discomfort, or when you hide your real feelings to maintain peace, you're not being authentic. You're curating a version of yourself that fits what others want, not who you really are. And over time, you lose track of your own identity because it's buried under layers of approval-seeking behavior. Self-respect doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real. And the more you make other people's opinions your compass, the more lost you become. You stop trusting your instincts. You second-guess every decision. You look outward for validation because inward, there's no anchor left. People-pleasing is not kindness. It's self-erasure. You be a chameleon, blending into everyone else's needs while abandoning your own. You show up for everyone else, but no one's home for you. That emptiness is the price of making others comfortable at the expense of your own truth. Respect is one of the most misunderstood currencies in human interaction. Too often, people assume they deserve respect just because they exist, because of their title, their age, their status, or their image. But real respect, the kind that holds weight, that shapes relationships and defines influence, is earned. It's not something you can demand, manipulate, or fake your way into. It's built through action, consistency, and character. There's a difference between basic decency and genuine respect. Everyone is owed human decency. That's a matter of integrity. But respect, that's a matter of merit. You don't get respect just because you ask for it, and you definitely get it by pleasing everyone or playing small. In fact, the more you try to be liked by everyone, the less people take you seriously. The person who constantly bends, constantly agrees, constantly avoids tension. That person might be accepted, but they won't be respected. Respect is built through boundaries. People may not always like someone who says no, but they remember them. They may get frustrated with someone who stands firm, but they learn to value them. Why? Because people trust what is consistent. People respect what is clear. A person with boundaries sends a messaging. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what I will and won't allow. That clarity earns respect. Even in silence, you can't earn respect from others if you don't have it for yourself first. When you tolerate disrespect, mistreatment, or manipulation, you're teaching people how to treat you. Research roles at Stanford. You're showing them the price you've put on your own value. And if that price is low, don't be surprised when they treat you like you're disposable. Respect for that starts with how you carry yourself, how you speak about yourself, and how you allow others to engage with you. It's also important to understand that respect doesn't come from volume or aggression. It doesn't come from control or intimidation. It comes from alignment. When your words match your actions, when you stand by your principles under pressure, when you handle yourself with discipline, even in chaos. That's what earns long-term respect. It doesn't matter how loud someone is or how powerful they appear. If they lack character, the respect they get is surface level and temporary. There's also a false idea floating around that being nice automatically earns respect. But niceness without a backbone is just passivity. People may smile to your face, but behind your back, they don't take you seriously. Why? Because you've never shown them the edge? Respect often comes from moments of tension, moments where you choose truth over comfort, integrity over image, and boundaries over approval. In those moments, people see the real you, and it's that realness that sticks. When you carry yourself like your time, energy, and voice matter, people respond accordingly. But when you hand out your respect too easily or expect it in return just for showing up, you set yourself up for disappointment. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. At Stanford, it's about pulling yourself back to where you belong. It's about choosing yourself not in a selfish way, but in a way that says, I matter too. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep others out. They are doors with locks that you control. You decide who comes in, how long they stay, and how they treat you while they're there. That's not cruelty. That's self-love. For too long, people have been taught that loving others means constantly sacrificing, constantly saying yes, constantly being available. But love without limits is not love. It's burnout. And no one wins when you're drained, resentful, or stretched too thin. The truth is, the more you love yourself, the more clearly you begin to see what is and isn't acceptable. Boundaries are simply the language of that clarity. When you have boundaries, you stop giving people access to parts of you they haven't earned. You stop letting guilt make your decisions. You stop apologizing for needing space, for needing rest, at Stanford, for needing respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, you're telling yourself, I'm worthy of protection. I'm worthy of peace. At Stanford, I'm worthy of being treated with care. That's not just a rule. That's a reflection of your self-worth. In research roles at Stanford, people who struggle with boundaries often confuse them with rejection or hostility. But setting a boundary doesn't mean you love someone less. It means you've learned to love yourself enough not to be mistreated, overlooked, or used. It means you're done explaining your standards to people who benefit from you having none. It's not your job to convince others that your limits are reasonable. Your job is to honor them whether others agree or not. Boundaries also reveal who's really in your corner. The people who respect your limits, who honor your push past your comfort. Those are the ones who see your humanity. But the ones who get offended, who guilt trip, who manipulate when you try to protect your peace, those people were never invested in you, only in your compliance. And the sooner you recognize that, the freer you become. Self-love isn't loud. It doesn't always look like affirmations or self-care routines. Sometimes it looks like not answering the phone. Sometimes it looks like canceling plans without explaining yourself. Sometimes it looks like walking away from conversations, relationships, or environments that no longer align with your values. Boundaries are how self-love moves from a feeling to an action, from a concept to a commitment. Living without boundaries is like leaving your door wide open and wondering why people walk in with muddy shoes. You can't blame others for crossing lines you never drew. Taking responsibility for your space, your time, and your energy is one of the most powerful forms of love you can show yourself. It's a declaration that your well-being is not up for negotiation in a perfect world. Being nice would be enough. Smiling, being agreeable, staying out of conflict, and making sure everyone feels good. Those traits would be rewarded. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where clarity beats compliance, where assertiveness often gets attention, and where those who hesitate to speak up are quickly pushed to the background. Nice people, though well-intentioned, often get overlooked, not because they lack value, but because they fail to claim it. Being nice is often confused with being good. But niceness is frequently just a social mask, a way to avoid discomfort, dodge rejection, and stay liked. Nice people tend to say what others want to hear. They suppress disagreement, avoid taking bold stands, and prioritize harmony over honesty. That might make them pleasant to be around, but in a competitive, fast-moving world, it makes them forgettable. At Stanford, the reality is that people pay attention to what stands out. The world notices those who speak with conviction, who take up space, who are unapologetically clear about who they are and what they want. It's not about being rude or aggressive. It's about being seen. And being nice, in the traditional sense, often means making yourself small, palatable, non-threatening. That may keep you safe, but it won't get you recognized. In professional settings, the nice employee is often the one who gets the extra work, but not the promotion. They're reliable, agreeable, and never make waves. But they also don't ask for what they deserve. They don't challenge ideas. They don't demand better treatment or speak up when they're overlooked. Meanwhile, someone with less experience but more confidence steps up, takes credit, and gets ahead. It's not always fair, but it's how the world often works. In relationships, the same pattern plays out. Nice people often end up being emotionally available doormats, the ones who are always there, always understanding, always forgiving. And they wonder why they're taken for granted. It's because niceness without boundaries reads as weakness. People assume you'll stay, no matter how you're treated, because your priority is their comfort, not your own self-worth. This world respects strength. It values clarity, boldness, and the ability to make hard decisions. Niceness, especially when it's rooted in fear of disapproval, doesn't carry the same weight. It's not enough to be liked. You have to be respected. And respect doesn't come from always saying yes. It comes from knowing when to say no, when to draw a line, when to speak a truth that might not be easy to hear. The irony is that nice people often feel invisible while doing everything to be accepted. They give more than they get. They listen more than they're heard. They support others endlessly and receive little in return. And while they may never admit it, deep down, they feel unseen. Not because they don't matter, but because they never demanded to be. There comes a point when being nice stops being a virtue and starts becoming a burden, a mask, a quiet agreement to be everything others want you to be, except yourself. Being nice means keeping things light, smooth, easy. It means avoiding friction. It means holding back thoughts that might be too much. Hiding feelings might be too intense. And saying what's expected rather than what's true. But here's the truth. Nice won't change your life. Real will. Being real means dropping the act. It means refusing to play roles just to make others comfortable. It means standing in your truth, even if it's messy, even if it's unpopular, even if it makes people uncomfortable. When you're nice, you give the world a watered-down version of yourself. You offer politeness over passion, silence over honesty, and agreement over authenticity. But when you're real, you give the world something raw, something solid, something that can't be faked. The cost of always being nice is heavy. You suppress your needs. You pretend everything's fine. You stretch yourself then to keep the peace, and slowly you start to disappear. Your yes becomes automatic. Your no gets buried in guilt. You smile when you want to scream. And the more you do it, the more you train others to expect a version of you that doesn't even exist. You create connections based on performance, not truth. And that leaves you feeling empty. Real doesn't mean rude. Real doesn't mean reckless. It means honest. It means grounded. It means having the courage to say what you feel, ask for what you need, and walk away when something doesn't align with who you are. Being real means being willing to disappoint others before you disappoint yourself. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. When you stop being nice and start being real, things change. Some people will fall away. The ones who liked you better when you were quiet, agreeable, and easy to control. But what you lose in shallow approval, you gain in real connection. You'll attract people who respect your honesty, who value your boundaries, who can meet you where you actually are, not where you pretend to be. Being real requires strength. It requires you to face conflict, to stand alone sometimes, to say the thing everyone else is avoiding. But that's where power lies. That's where freedom is. That's where authenticity becomes your compass. When you stop needing everyone to like you, start doing things that align with who you are, not who the world told you to be. Nice is reactive. It's shaped by how others feel, what others think, what others need. Real is proactive. It's shaped by who you are, what you believe, and what you stand for. Being nice keeps you liked. Being real earns you respect. And the life you truly want can only begin the moment you choose real over liked, truth over comfort, and alignment over approval. So here's the truth. Being nice to everyone might make you likable, but it won't make you respected, fulfilled, or powerful. Niceness, when rooted in fear, people-pleasing, and avoidance, leads to exhaustion, self-betrayal, and invisibility. You weren't to blend in. You weren't put here. Keep everyone else comfortable while silencing your own voice. The world doesn't need more nice people. It needs real people, people with boundaries, people with courage, people who know when to say eyes and who are not afraid to say no, people who show up authentically even when it's uncomfortable. That's where confidence lives. That's where self-respect. That's where your power begins. So stop being nice to everyone. Start being honest with yourself. Start being bold. Start being real. Because the life you're trying to create can only grow in truth, not in approval.